Magical people, hi there. Uh, this is our next feature on our list, the Antipalus Maleficiorum by Johannes Trithemius. Well, actually, he wasn't called Johannes Trithemius all his life. He he began by being called Johannes Heidenberg. He was a very interesting man, a very interesting young man. He once went with a friend on a trip in the mountains, and then he got stuck in an old abbey. And he was like, I don't know, 16, 17, something like this. And he was a very curious individual, and began by going into the monastery, and he stayed in the monastery, and he was elected as an what do you call it? The big guy in the monastery. I don't recall the word in English because all the other monks wanted to be left alone to their um, lollygagging and lily-bellying around and just getting smashed in the face all the time. And they didn't want to do their jobs and figured that this small boy, Johannes of Sponheim, Johannes Heidelberg, was the perfect fit for their boss. So they kind of got things wrong because he whipped them into shape and then rebuilt and remodeled the whole monastery and then started to work on their library. And he was a very peculiar individual because he knew that some types of literature were was not so well received by the monks and by clerics in general, and he did all sorts of exchanges. So he had the monks copy the gospel and the psalms, and then went around to monastery and went to the librarians and said, "Hey, do you by any chance have any works on magic and necromancy and alchemy and paganism and stuff like this?" And they were like, "Well, yeah, of course we have, but those aren't for monks, you know." Well, I know. Don't you want to get rid of them? I have these books, these beautiful Gospels and Psalters. Why don't you have an exchange with us? So I can give you good Christian books, and you can just give me those nasty, pesky books on magic, so nobody will read them, and they're gonna be safe with me. And I don't know if they had a choice because if he made a big deal of the librarian wanted to keep those books on magic, it would be very harmful for them. So I think they just gave it to him. So he amassed one of the most amazing libraries in all of Germany, especially on old wisdom like philosophy, pagan philosophy, and geometry and magic and everything not so Christian. Of course, with Christian elements, but not everything. So he made a list of naughty books you shouldn't read as a Christian, and in his book Antipalus Maleficiorum, published by Golden Horde, he lists about 100 examples of what kind of books you are not okay to read, like Liber Capiti Saturni, the Book of the Head of Saturn. It is a book of convocation belonging to necromancy and spirits, which is superstitious in any case. So he goes on to list all kinds of necromantic books, and he goes on to say that they're superstitious and evil and not fit for a young man to read if he wants to gain wisdom. And but he gives um, very precise examples of these books, and he gives the incipits of these books, and you can look for them in certain libraries, and This is a very, very useful book if you are researching grimoires. So it's a must-have book for a grimoire researcher person. Why? Let me give you an example. So for the longest time, me as well as other writers have have tried to make sense of the book of offices of spirits, the Liber Officiorum Spiritum, and as we know, the Goetia has 72 demons, which are taken from Johannes Vierius, the Pseudomonachia Daemonum, which was who was a scholar, which was a student of Cornelius Agrippa, who was a student of Johannes Trithemius, so he might have consulted the same books. And we know that those are taken from something called Liber Empto Solomonis, the book of the disciples of Solomon, or the book of the disciple of Solomon, and he quotes other books as well. So I thought I could reconstruct the said book by comparing the Pseudomonarchia Daemonum with other instances like the Plutei Medici magical manuscript and the CLM 849, I think, manuscript, the Munich manual, and so on. And I thought the book of Volbron and the Livre des Esprits, and I thought I could actually make up an origin book for them all, an original Liber Officiorum Spiritum. And as it turns out, according to Trithemius and according to Berengarius Ganellus, that's a bit idiotic of me, because there wasn't only one book of the offices of spirits, there were more. So at least two books of the offices of the spirits are quoted both by Trithemius and by Berengarius Ganellus, one being written by Solomon and one being written by Tos Grecus. Now, according to the mythology, Tos Grecus was an apprentice of Solomon, but they're just names that we put to certain grimoires. So for instance, when Ganellus gives us the whole catalog of spirits from the Summa Sacra Magice, he says this spirit has 84 legions according to Solomon, but according to Tos Grecus, he has 65 legions. And he appears like a crocodile riding Hugh Hefner, but according to Tos Grecus, he appears like a crocodile riding Donald Trump. And things of that nature. So it's very important to have a book that tells us about the books used by other people who wrote other books on other books, and so on and so on. So we have to have a catalog, if you will, and the Antipalus Maleficiorum is one such book. This is the Golden Horde edition. It was written and edited by the very kind Stephen Skinner, whom I talked extensively, and my friend Daniel Clark. And I'm extremely proud of Daniel. I think this is the first project he worked on with Stephen Skinner and Golden Horde, and he is a guy who is absolutely amazing and who has helped me tremendously in my researches. And now he's putting out a book on the libraries of certain nobility members of the nobility and collectors and maybe practitioners, and I can't wait to buy that and do a review about this. But I am extremely proud of my friend, and I am saluting him, and I hope I have all his books. So, without further ado, you should get a copy of the Trithemius Secret Library, Antipalus Maleficorum. It is also good to mention that Joseph Peterson also has his version of the Antipalus Maleficorum catalog of necromantic books on his esoteric archives website, and you should go and check out both. So you could have his version, which is an online version who actually quotes some websites and gives some links to extant manuscripts from the list of the Trithemius, and you should also buy this one. And I know it's not a big deal. It's not amazing new news. It's been out for quite some time, but this is when I got to it, and my stack will be lower and lower in the following days. Have fun.